Shit made me look shorter than I actually am. I'll be alright. We be alright. We be alright. We be alright. As we're getting ready for another rousing, another rousing day. Welcome to the moon day. Welcome to the moon day. About to throw a couple of people up in here. The usual suspects. I've learned to do it better this way. Better do it this way. Better to do it this way. As we getting ready, as we getting deep into this aspect, I'm gonna break down a couple of things. I'm gonna break down a couple of things that I've been doing and the reason I've been doing them. The aspect of I'm all about practical application. If you don't know who I am, and it's your first time, Papa Lucifer Sambi, you call me Lou, you call me Lucifer, call me anything but not practical. I wanted to get in today something I've been working on. I'm going to get into a couple of things I'm working on as everybody's filling in and doing things of that nature. But I wanted to get into actual practical application. What's up, fam? What's up, fam? I wanted to get into practical. I wanted to really get into this practical application process versus this appropriation versus sitting there inside of a space or versus sitting inside of that space. A lot of times when we're doing our work, a lot of times when we're inside of these spaces, a lot of the time, even for me, when I had to think about it earlier on in my work, and that's me becoming a better version of myself and stepping into my shit, I had to understand there's a difference between appropriation. That's when you're sitting inside of that. There's a difference between appropriation and application, actual application. There's a difference between the rhetoric or you get a new word. Think about, you get a new word. You find, ooh, I learned a new word today. And that word was narcissist. I learned a new word today, and that word was energy vampire. I learned a new word today, and that word was vibration. I learned a new word today, and that word was frequency. I learned a new word today. I learned a new deity today, and that deity is... There's a remedial... Well, this liquid death is good. There's this remedial sense of the process. If you work with me, you look at my posts, like as we're letting it feel, I'm gonna talk about the post. I'm gonna use an example of practical application. If you go up and down my page, and you scroll back to about 3 weeks ago. You'll see that I believe I started on a Wednesday. And I went and created a couple, formulated a couple of sigils. I put together the aspects of the frequencies for each of the days of the week. I used each one of the days of the week. Something simple, something practical. And every one of the aspects, I gave you the certain deities or the energies you work with inside of that space, the frequencies to work with, things of that nature. And I've made those a couple of posts. On my TikTok, I did a couple of videos. In my reels, I made it a couple of reels, added some music, using those tones, aspects into that space. During that same week, I rolled out the 12 days of self-reflection. Every day, a different question. Ask yourself that, sitting with that question, and I gave a nice little prompt that went with it. Last week, I put in I put in 8 levels of self-forgiveness, the self-forgiveness affirmations. And each affirmation, when you got to the point of looking at the affirmations, if you look at the background of each one of the illustrations that I used, it used the symbol. I used the symbols that I used before for the sigils. I used the sigils as the symbols, as the background to each one of those aspects of the work as I was putting everything up. This is an example of the application process. One of the things that I always talk about, and I'm always breaking down, is the importance of building out your shit. The importance of building out your shit. You're not building it out and allowing yourself to feel those feelings of, well, I'm building it out for this, or I'm building it out for this, or I'm doing it for this, and learning how to make it in the aspects of you. Or getting information for that feel good. A lot of every time you're looking for the feel good, as an example, that's that state of appropriation. We look at appropriation as, for most people, be like, white people appropriate our culture and our signs and all our shit. They appropriate all our shit and they don't know what it's been through. But then I remember looking at that. I remember the first time like coming into that realm and looking at that, and I noticed that a lot of the things that we always talk about as being appropriated from us, it's almost all of it is attached to pain. Almost all of it's attached to trauma. Everything from, oh my God, we used to braid our hair and do cornrows, and we used to like put the directions in our cornrows so they can't wear that because they don't understand what it is. Attached to an aspect of trauma. Oh my God, they're trying to act black and act like they're hood and act like they're black. The appropriation of trauma. We're so used to attaching to what we can appropriate. Where this aspect of coming into your spiritual aspects, even when you're coming into that space, it's two different spaces that you come into. You have to think about it. Your trauma in itself puts you into a state of dysfunction, meaning it puts you into a state of disorder, meaning that it keeps you in a state of depletion. Say them 3 things one more time. When you're stuck in a state of dysfunction, when we find ourselves stuck in a state of dysfunction, the only thing that comes out of dysfunction is disorder, disarray, disorganized aspects, anxiousness, avoidance. Usually at the end of the dysfunction, or wherever that dysfunction is coming up, similar to the aspects when I talk about the trigger, is letting you know where you weren't present. A lot of times, because we've learned how to operate in dysfunction for most of our lives, you learn how to operate in dysfunction, you never find a sense of order. You never come into a sense of discipline. Inconsistency becomes impossible. You're always stuck in a state of reaction. You're looking for something to feel inside of that space. You're looking for something to validate your fear. So automatically, as you're sitting inside of that space, this fear-based space, you're always looking for something to validate your fear. Something for you to push through, something for you to overcome. You're always looking for an external adversary and trying to change it, or you're trying to, like, give an example. You're trying to make your job what it's not. You're trying to make your job something that it's not. You're trying to make that relationship something that it's not supposed to be. You're trying to make these people around you act a certain way or be a certain way. Stuck in survival. You're always putting yourself in a state where you're always trying to make something become, because what we were taught in the beginning was that we were stuck inside of that space of being separated from ourselves. And then you think about slavery, all of these aspects that were overlaid on top of it, but it was in the state of aspects of separation. even in a space of right now, if you go down your timeline, I can guarantee we're back in the phase. I can tell you the phases of dysfunction because I'm outside of them now. Right now, I can guarantee going up and down somebody's page, we're now in the phase or in the season of that phase where everybody's talking about we're not African, we're indigenous to this land. Right now, guaranteed, you go up and down your page, similar to when you go on Google, you hit up Amazon, and you go onto your timeline, I guarantee it's there. I can almost guarantee it. Because we're stuck in dysfunction, it's always a state of regurgitation. It's always a state of regurgitation to that point of, it's always the regurgitation that's in disorder. It's always the aspects of regression that's in that state of depletion to go back into more dysfunction. So you can feel good about yourself. You're appropriating, not saying, and this is not saying to the aspect that you're not indigenous to this land. It's not saying that you're not this, or you're not that, or you're not this, or not that. We're not trying to choose sides. But it's understanding, taking that information further. That's the application process. A lot of times we keep getting stuck because we're trying to go through appropriation. So it's like, just as I said, as we opened up, it's like, oh my goodness, I just found out this. So the first thing that you go do is you go try to go get the crystal, the deity, the statue, whatever it may be, but you haven't done the internal work. You're not doing the internal work. You're just getting, it's like, put it like this. It's like going back in the day, thinking about high school, back in school, whenever the new shoes came out, or whatever era you came in through your loop. It's like, ooh, shoes came out, the Jordans came out, I'm going to get some Jordans. Yeah. Like, once again, I'm always breaking this down. The only thing comfort is take it out of this aspect of this old moral compassing. The only thing comfort is your ability to react to. You know how to react. You know how to react to that job. If your job don't give you no money, your job don't give you that raise, some shit don't go the way you want it, you know exactly how to react to it, and you know exactly how to react to it, and you know exactly what the response is going to be. You know exactly how to react to it. You know exactly how to react to it, so you know exactly what the response is going to be. You know, like simple examples, you know that if you don't put gas in your fucking car and you trying to ride around and go places, you know you're going to be on the side of the road somewhere you don't get no damn gas. Common sense inside of that space. That's the same thing with the aspects of you doing the aspects of the work. The thing that keeps getting people, especially with my newest lineup of clients that I'm working with now, is the aspect of sitting with the feeling without trying to define it as something else. Without trying to use what they've already had. And then learning how to use what they already know. I have an example. There is a difference when going into the dark spaces and knowing what to focus on. There is a difference between going into a dark space and seeing a bunch of shit on the walls. Use the example. If you ever seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds. Remember the scene when the lieutenant, he got the little paper and he said, "That's a black light bulb, get it in any hardware store." And he had the black light bulb, and they went to the warehouse, and they shined the light on the wall, and all the writing was all over the wall. Because he understood, when he went in there the first time, he saw the fragments. Now, then I'm going to break this down and use another, I'm going to give you a key. He used that, he was like, okay, cool. All he saw was the fragments of glass. He saw the fragments of the shadow in the example. Fragments of the shadow. It was only after he went through his process, he went through his deductive reasoning, he went through his root analysis, he went to the shop where they were at. He went to the shop. He went and talked to Nick. He went to go talk to Roman Reigns. He went to go talk. He went to the shop. He went and got the information. Even when he failed, even when something happened inside of that space, remember when Roman Reigns was about to go pick up go grab the dirty ladies, the Mercedes, and he came back to the car, he looked at the picture. These is two motherfuckers, this is two sides of the shadow looking at themselves in order to integrate. Looking inside of that space, and then he went and looked back at the photo, and he was like, that car is 2 cars up. Then he made the call, and he called everybody that was trying to go get, yo, what about these keys, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Even to the point of that scene when the dog ate the keys, and they had to go get the X-Lax, so they had to get to the root of the source to go get the shit. He had to go back into the shit, or back into that root to go get the source, the original keys, so they can go get the other joints, go into the, breaking through the aspects of the fear, even to the point of, but here's the key, I went too far and come back. The reason why I'm using this analogy, the reason why I'm using that is, when he went back with the light bulb, he knew exactly what he was looking for. He was no longer he was not going into that space. At no point in time did the lieutenant try to appropriate or use information. If he allowed himself to use old information, he would have, if he allowed himself to try to skip over using old information and stay in one way and not allow himself to shift through the space, he would have never gotten to the end of it. Because remember, he said because he's scared of, what did he say to Nicolas Cage? Because he's scared of it. Why? How you know he ain't got there yet? Because he's scared of it. It's something like a unicorn or something. Even towards the end, inside of that space, Nicolas Cage went crazy. He went wild. This nigga speeding all around town. He hit that ramp, got all the way there. He faced to go try to save his little brother or his inner child of himself, his inner child version of himself inside of that space. And then he got all the way there. His adversary, the lieutenant, meets him there, and he saves his adversary's life. And he says, man, go out here. I'm going to clean this up. He was literally talking. His shadow was telling, yo, I'm going to clean this shit up. Because he went through the process. He understood, he trusted, because what he said, everybody said that they changed. Everybody said that they changed and they applied to the changes. Even Nicolas Cage through the entire movie was sitting here trying to convince everybody of why he did what he did. But only his homeboy, he was like, you don't understand why he left. Everybody was upset that he left inside of that space because they still were working through that. They had to go through their own shit. This is the application process. The reason I use that, I'm going to give this key. Once you understand how to apply, truly understand how to do practical application, you're no longer seeking shit to give you the feel good. You're no longer seeking shit to seek for the feel good. Me being a therapist, me being a spiritual therapist, me doing everything that I do, there's not one show that I watch that my mind automatically doesn't break down psychologically. It can be some of the simplest shit, but I can break it down psychologically. And because I'm not seeking validation for what I am, it confirms things. Since I'm in that constant state of the chaos, here's the key. You have to integrate into your chaos. You must integrate into your chaos. Yes, we are chaos beings. Yes, you are a chaos being. Yes, it is your birthright. Yes, you are a chaos being. Yes, it's your birthright. Yes. You can have an answer to all that. Yes. Yes, it's your birthright. Yes, you're a chaos being. Yes, you're older than the gods. Yes. But you're also wounded. You're also wounded. Think about it like this. Think about it like this. Whenever you see those movies or the shows with the little kid or the 17-year-old, 18-year-old, they're trust fund babies. They gave you the title of what a trust fund baby was. They implemented that into your mind. The trust fund baby, and they can't wait till they turn 21 and they get access to all the money. They get access to all of this energy and this money, and they can live their life however they want to live it. That's how you act when you aspects trying to appropriate. That's the ultimate form of appropriation. There's different levels of chaos to each level of. Think about this. We've all heard the phrase "new levels, new devils." New levels, new devils. You've heard me say in lectures, in Friday night lectures on my channel, inside of that space, you heard me say the thing of, it doesn't matter what you do, if you don't deal with it at this level, you gonna take it up to the next level. The only adversary is the shit you keep taking up there with you. That becomes your adversary. That becomes your adversary. That becomes the next level of shit that you're either going to try to find something to appropriate with it to give you the feel-good feeling of saying, yeah, now I'm on a different frequency, but you still haven't defined those old frequencies. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you haven't defined those old frequencies yet. So now you're sitting there, you're continuously trying to do the same shit over and over again. The way that I've broken down, and I'm going to break them down today, use as the examples today, the way that you broke down these levels of dysfunction, the best way for me to break them down at this point in time is male and female, woman and man, divine masculine, divine feminine. Male and female, woman and man, divine masculine, divine feminine. Yep. Or like in or in the what is that? Or in that Netflix special that they had out that was Lock and Key. Anything of that nature. So sitting inside of that space, you're trying to, as you're looking through these spaces, I almost lost that whole taco train of thought. But looking inside of that space, a lot of the things that we keep getting knocked up with, we're just regurgitating. A lot of the shit you're doing is based on regurgitation. Earlier on, when I was dropping lives in my lectures on Friday night lectures, every single lecture, every time I talked about whatever the title was, whether it was artificial intelligence, whether it was artificial intelligence, whatever it was, archons, whatever it was, everything, demiurge, whatever it was, every time I talked about it, I was like, that's an aspect of you. That is an aspect of you. When I break down the aspect of every deity has a higher and a lower aspect to itself, those are aspects of you. And the aspects of the male and the female, that's you in the space of duality. There's things that a male and a female are in the aspects of definition do, based in the aspects of the definition of being male or being female. There's certain things that you feel that you're entitled to because you're a male. There's certain things that you are entitled to that you get through being a female. Look at the aspects, when we look at the aspects of starting at the root. What's at the root of being a male? What's at the root of being a female? What's at the root of being a male? What's at the root of being a female? What is in the aspects when we look at the sacral chakra? Or coming to the confidence. What makes you confident as a male? What makes you confident as a female? Most people get stuck, and I talk about this shit all the time, most people get stuck in the alpha male or the alpha female space. When you want to be an alpha male or alpha female, most people are stuck within their solar chakra. Most people haven't even moved out of their root chakra space. You can't even do nothing past the aspects of your heart. Because when you go past the heart, this is the state of you coming into androgyny. This is the state of you coming into androgyny. That oneness, that wholeness, that the oneness, the wholeness, the harmony, the balance, the heart of a feather, being at the principles of Mayat and everything inside of that space. You can't even sit inside of this space and process information. So everything that you speak is void of the heart. Through the appropriation process, this is also when we think about the statistics. People love using statistics to validate their points because we got used to using statistics to validate our points. Using the statistic outside of the feeling you always can use it out of context. Because the original context is the original thought in which why you're using it. Use an example. Saturday, I made a shit ton of posts. One of the posts that I posted, and this is how we're gonna use this on the breakdown. One of the posts that I posted was about the divine masculine and the divine feminine. The divine masculine does not protect and provide. Oh my God. Oh my God. The divine masculine does not protect and provide. The divine feminine does not nurture nor guide. Hold both of those. The divine masculine does not nurture, does not protect and provide. The divine feminine does not nurture nor guide. Hold that in your heads. The divine masculine invests, and the divine feminine invests. The divine masculine invests in what nurtures and guides in the alignment with his purpose. Because the divine masculine space understands that when moving in its purpose or on the path to its purpose, moving in its purpose or in the path to its higher aspects of its purpose, if I'm moving right, if I'm moving righteously, then I'm automatically protected, and I'm automatically, everything that needs to be provided will be provided for me. If I am moving on my path, moving in my purpose, moving in my path, moving in my purpose, in my true purpose of what I'm supposed to be doing at that point in time, I will automatically be provided for, and I will automatically be protected. I will automatically be provided for, and I will automatically be protected. I'm going to say that again, and we're going to build it down. The divine masculine does not protect nor provide. The divine masculine invests in what nurtures and guides in alignment with his purpose, because he understands that his purpose, as long as he's moving in his purpose, he is provided and protected. So anything that he invests in, that is in alignment with his application will be provided and protected for as well. Let's shift over to the divine feminine. The divine feminine does not nurture nor guide. The divine feminine invests in what provides and protects her purpose, in alignment with her purpose. Because she understands that if she's walking in her purpose, in the path of her purpose, where she needs to be, whether it's the aspects of she needs to be healing, whether it's the aspects she needs to either be in the healing process, in the healing process, in the hermit phase, or in that alone process, or she needs to be in the aspects of that building process. She understands that as long as she's moving inside of her purpose, she's always everything that she nurtures and she guides will be in a state of being protected and provided for automatically. Reason that I'm saying this. Now, let's drop down. I made another post. I said only a male or a female, only a male or female, only a male and female, only a male / female will compromise their standards and their boundaries, for attention. Because a male and a female at the base of the root, you're learning who the fuck you are. You don't have a purpose. You don't know what your purpose is. How many times have you heard somebody like, I don't know what my purpose is. I've done so many things in my life and I thought I was going the right way. But then when you really sat down, if you haven't sit down, please come sit down with somebody. Please come sit down in the aspects of your purpose. And you create what you did in the aspects of being a male and a female, trying to be the alpha male, the alpha female, the strong independent woman, the strong angry black man, in those aspects, you were giving things for the state of appropriation to validate your dysfunction. To validate your dysfunction. You got all that shit to validate your dysfunction. Everything that you use, this is when I talk about, now we come back to the point where I'm talking about statistics. We always try to use the statistics to validate our context. But if I'm taking it outside of the context, that means I'm removing the feminine aspect from it. If I'm removing either the masculine or the feminine aspect from it, and I'm not truly in tune with my feelings or my emotions, every time I use the information, I become, you've seen it on YouTube. On YouTube, you become divorced from the reality or in a state of delusion. There's over 50, 60, maybe. I ain't really counted. But I'll say this. Every time you go up and down your timeline, I can guarantee there's something talking about the modern woman, passport bros, niggas going overseas, women is this, and men are this, and red pill, blue pill, all this other bullshit. Every fucking time. Everybody has took it and made it a way of being to appropriate others and trying to make them change in a state so they don't have to change. Use an example for the aspects of a male. I've never subscribed to it, never done it. I've never subscribed to men are supposed to go spread their seeds and so they can get with a bunch of women versus women can't get with a bunch of men. Taking that out of context, that sounds, I'm a man, I'm supposed to have a bunch of bitches and women looking at me. It sounds stupid. But when you get to a certain level and you're really doing the work, you figure out how stupid that sounds. Because creation is not limited to creating a physical version of yourself. When you're moving outside of your purpose, your highest purpose will be fatherhood. Your highest purpose gets to be fatherhood and you, yeah, I'm a father. That's the highest honor. But how did you learn how to be a father? This is where we look at the aspects of appropriation versus application. Because when you really look at your application process, you really go look at those applications you wrote out of how you became a father, how you became a mother. In those instances, you start realizing that it was an accolade of your trauma. It was an accolade of the events of the trauma that unresolved. Versus the application process, I have no children. I have no children. I got nieces, nephews, little cousins, godchildren, all that shit of that nature. Because in the highest aspect, in the highest aspect, first going through my healing process, healing my inner child, really doing the work with my inner child, inner adolescence, things of that nature. Stepping into my actual manhood. Because until I got to that point, I was in a state, I go to this all the time, I was in a state of hyper-adolescence. That means I was hyper-fixated on being the male, on being the alpha male. I was hyper-fixated, staying in that state of the male and the female, and looking for attention, and compromising your standards, or creating standards that are not valid, creating standards that cannot grow, creating boundaries that limit your ability to move inside of that space. You get stuck within that paradigm. So now you get stuck in triggered by looking at Kevin Samuels the same way everybody's looking at Kevin Samuels, the same way now Jerry Springer didn't transition. Now I guarantee everybody's waiting for Maury to transition. But you're not understanding what it actually is. See, when I looked at Kevin Samuels shit, in the aspects of my studies and looking at Kevin Samuels, I was like, I don't have to agree with everything, because this is what fucks us up. This is what fucks you up when you stuck in that realm in between that your male and female aspect, the male and female dysfunction between your womanhood and your manhood, your that woman and manhood, the dysfunctions of manhood and womanhood. This is what happens when you get stuck in between these realms. You'll look at Kevin, when we think about acceptance, like the first time you think about apologizing to somebody, if you come sit down with me and I say, hey, you gotta apologize, you'll look at me like I'm fucking crazy. Be like, what you mean I gotta apologize? I can never apologize for everything that they did and how they made me feel and this, and this. I can never apologize for that shit. Okay. You have to acknowledge it and accept it. Now, if I acknowledge it, then it makes it real. If I apologize, that means I gotta let it go. I'm not ready to let it go because I'm not ready to acknowledge it, because I'm not ready to make it real. Because if I make it real, I have to accept it. If I'm not accepting of it, my thought process, our process is based on acceptance. When we think about acceptance, you think you got to partake in that shit. That's why it becomes so cloudy to go through your healing process, because you think you got to, because you think that just because you accepted something, you have to be partaking in it. That ain't what acceptance is. The truest, highest aspect of acceptance is being able to accept that person as who they are, that idea, whatever it may be, accept it as what it is, and not trying to, and so you do not project yourself onto it. Well, I was this. Well, when I was that age, I did this, and this. Well, I'm at this age and I was doing this, and this. You're constantly always in a state of projecting yourself onto things, because you're stuck in between that loop of what it is to be in the womanhood and what it is to be a female, what it is to be in manhood and what it is to be the aspects of coming into the aspects of being a male. You're stuck within that lower realm of the aspects of the male and female, which is at the root of everything. When we look now, I'm gonna give you the game. Think about the law of male and female, the law of polarity, male and female. There's a masculine, and the law of gender. There's a masculine and a feminine within everything. Yeah, exactly. Which leads in what I was saying. We're gonna go back up, but look into the aspects of the space. As I was healing as I was doing my inner child work, healing the scars to my manhood, and being able to exalt those aspects into my manhood through the aspects of, okay, I did this. Yes, I did it. Yeah, I did that a lot. I don't know why. I know I did it, but now I accept that I've done this. I no longer have to do that. But in order for me no longer to have to do this, now I must apply what I've learned. Once you apply, then you come into that state of your manhood. You come into that part, you come into the state of saying that shit with your chest. We say this shit all the time, we just don't know what it means. Say that shit with your chest, son. Stick your chest out. If you do anything in the aspects, if you know anything about, use an example. If you ever looked at the gentlemen's schools or the etiquette schools, they always teach you to shoulders back, chest out. Whether you are male or female, shoulders back, ladies, chest out, head straight. Shoulders back, chest out, head straight. Because in that breakdown of that aspect of that space, and I broke this down in the way of the spirit man, you're opening yourself to your environment. You're opening yourself to your environment. I move fully open to my environment, but I have to make sure my heart is in line. My heart is in alignment, or whatever hits me in my chest gonna fuck me up. You can use another example, talk about Iron Man and how he had to go through the process of finding his heart until he came to a point to where he didn't need it. He didn't need what he appropriated on his aspects of his heart, but he could not let go. The reason that, use the example, the reason that Iron Man couldn't pick up the hammer, because he wasn't true of heart. He wasn't true of heart. All the way to the end. We talk about Avengers. It's Endgame. Yes, and the last one. when he died with that shit on his heart. He died with that shit on his heart. He died with the shit on his heart. It'll be up. He died with that. He died with that shit on his heart. He died with that shit. He died. He was able to finally rest. If you look at it from one side, he died with that shit on his heart. He was finally, what did Pepper say to him? What did his feminine essence say to him? You can rest now, Tony. It's okay. You can let go. He finally let go. He finally transitioned. He finally could let go. And he finally could let go of what he'd been holding on to for all of those years. Fast forward, he finally could integrate with his, he finally could integrate with his work. He finally could integrate with his chaos. Because if you go to the Amazing Spider-Man, you go to the Amazing Spider-Man, and you've seen that movie. Do you remember that scene when he has to go, he gets in the jet and he's in the back? He said, I love that song. And he's sitting there putting together his first suit and he's owning his aspect. And then if you go back and you look at Iron Man and his relationship with Peter Parker, that was him dealing with his inner child. That was him dealing with his inner child, his innermost self. Giving his inner child things that he never had at a certain point. Giving his inner child the chances to fuck up inside of that space, to own the fuck ups, to own that, yeah, you gonna mess up. Yeah, you're gonna mess up. Yes, you gonna mess up. But it's a part of the process. So that's why then he became, even when he gave up, almost killed everybody, but he had to let go. The aspects of you coming through the aspects of your process is you have to let go of this impending that shit's gonna be fucking bad. You gotta let go of that impending shit's gonna be fucking bad. Shit's gonna be fucking horrible. If I do this, then oh my God, because that's when you get stuck inside. But remember, every time you are triggered, it's letting you know where you have not been present. It's letting you know what lesson you have to learn. It's letting you know exactly what lesson you have to learn. But if you don't allow yourself to sit inside of that space, what do? You run around and run around and run around trying to appropriate something to take on that aspect for you. You take on, okay, cool. Because then, and it becomes the ongoing cycle. You're stuck within the lower three. You're stuck in between being male and female, at the root of male and female, and coming into your manhood and your womanhood. Coming into that state of your manhood and your womanhood. Saying that shit with your chest. You're coming into that space. But you can't go past this space because when things start coming up that you have to face, you're trying to find a way to appropriate it or avoid it. Push it to the side. I don't want to face this. You got to face that. You got to face that shit up front. Because shadow work is an ongoing process. I like how I did that with my shadows and shit. But you're going through that space as you're going through the levels, and that's why I always tell people, yo, come sit down. As you're going through the levels, you have to remember that you have to shed all of the elements of dysfunction. You have to shed all of the elements of disorder in order for you to integrate with your chaos. I'm gonna repeat it again because I said it earlier on. Yes, you are a child of chaos. Sure, you're chaos. Yes, you're a chaos. Yes, you're an original. Yes. You get it. You get a sigil. You get a sigil. You get an altar. You get a candle. You get some crystals. You get some sage. Yes. But if I'm only using that from the space of the spoiled little kid, the spoiled child, in comfort, the spoiled child, the undisciplined child, then I'm simply waiting for something. All I have to do is have this in my hand. Similar, let's go back to Go back to if you were ever in the aspects of the church, in the aspects of religion in the church. Exactly. Rinse, repeat, because now you learn how to focus. Here goes into that space. When you were in church, what were we told? The end of days, and then you, after all of your suffering, you get to go to heaven, streets of gold, and whatever it was. I never could honestly sit with that. I remember watching Supernatural back to back, and I remember when it got to the season where they were showing everybody had their own version of heaven and shit. And then I was like, nigga, that makes more sense. Because inside of that space, that's the same thing you're doing with spirituality. Remember, when I talk about you replacing shit, when everybody talking about you replacing shit, let's get into the psychological aspects of what you're replacing. Because spiritual warfare is psychological warfare. You either going to stay in a state of dysfunction, i.e. trying to redirect yourself, or you're going to go through the aspects of the process through potential. Which goes to the aspects of, as you're going through that space, there's going to be shit that you're going to go back through. But it's all in the aspects of your response. Are you still reacting the same? Is that feeling of impending doom still there? Do you feel like, oh my God, it's over, I'm never gonna, what does your mind go to? Do you go to the head, or you go to the heart? You keep trying to bypass the heart and keep trying to go straight because you're stuck inside of your head. You haven't allowed yourself to drop. You're trying to, because of the traumatic experiences and the shit that we've been through inside of that space, you're trying to stay up here inside of your head. This is where it's safe for you. You've been safe inside of your head. You've been safe based on what you were able to see. Yeah, I can't apologize to them, because if I apologize to them, then it's going to make me look weak, i.e. make me vulnerable. You're supposed to be becoming vulnerable. Do you understand what the apology process is? That's the question you need to ask yourself. But as you're going through the aspects of that phase, yeah, it's literally learning how to aspect of. That's a great use. That's a great use. Y'all remember in the Matrix? We're gonna use a bunch of movie references to keep this honed in. Y'all remember in the Matrix? When it was like the key to bending the spoon is there is no damn spoon? That's what you're doing inside of that space. In order for you to deal with the aspects of, when I'm working with my clients and dealing with their trauma, 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to get you, I'm not trying, it's going to happen naturally, but sitting inside of that space, you are going to get so emotional that you have no choice. You only have one, you're only going to go to the point of where you have the choice. It's literally putting yourself in a state of the opposite. It didn't understand. It's putting yourself in a state of the opposite and understanding why you're doing that opposite. What is this opposite? You're literally stepping into the adversary role. You're trying to still try to be the hero. So when the aspects at the beginning of your trauma, through your survival, the version of you that you have created, this version of you that you have created is the person that you wish you had to talk to back then. But you don't know how to, because this person that you want to talk to here, you want to have them talk to them back then, they don't operate in dysfunction. The person that you're using operates in dysfunction. They don't operate in chaos. They don't operate in potential. You can tell that the version of you now doesn't operate in potential, because even when you do some spiritual shit, even when you do make an altar, meditate, you do some things, whenever you do a little bit of shit, you get excited, and you automatically try to deplete it. You try to use it. Okay, yay, I have fire. It's like you sitting there trying to make fire in the woods. Ooh, I got fire. And then you try to run with the fire. You know, running with fire is going to burn out, because you haven't learned the aspects of the pace. You ain't learned how to set that pace yet. You still operating in disorder. Of course it's going to deplete if you run with fire inside of your hand. You ain't learned how to harness that. You doing it externally is appropriation. You taking it in internally is the application. That's the integrating with the aspects of the chaos. That's when you stop looking at things, because, give the example. You're stuck inside of this constant cycle of course, there's something every damn month, every year, every cycle, something's going to happen that's going to trigger your emotions. It's going to pluck at your heartstring. Oh my God, they killed this person. Oh my God, this person got shot. Oh my God, this person got beat up. Oh my God. Now, I'm not saying if you're inside of the space and you actually can do something, even that has to change. See, here comes the key. Even that has to change, because it naturally changes as you're going through your process. That response has to change. As I said earlier, the divine masculine, if you're looking for a divine masculine in its highest aspects of itself, it doesn't provide or protect. It doesn't provide. I don't provide or protect. If you get in contact with one of my clients, look at one of my clients, the people that I work with, they'll let you know there's a feeling of protection and provision, but I'm not directly providing and protecting for you. I don't want you to feel good. I want you to get better, because I invest in what is in alignment with what nurtures and guides with my purpose. I invest in what nurture and guides with my purpose. I went through the healing phase. It'll be up. I went through my healing phase. I went through my shamanic rites. I went through these phases, so that now when I provide that service, now we can actually sit and talk about the process. I can invest in what nurtures and guides my purpose. My purpose is to provide a space. My purpose is to create a space that is protected in the aspect for you to actually go through your healing process. So naturally, I'm investing in that. I'm inviting and nurturing and guiding that. So whether you be the feminine, a dude coming to me, or a woman or a man coming to me, you're going to get that's automatically inside of that space. And that's offsetting to people. That's offsetting. You're not used to that. You're not used to being able to sit there and have a conversation without getting triggered. You're not used to somebody, this motherfucker let me yell. This motherfucker let me cry, yell, scream, curse, blame other people. He let me do that shit for 15 minutes. And then he told me to breathe. And then we sat down and had a conversation. I've never had somebody do that before. Because that's in the aspect of you becoming better. That's in you understand. That's the application process. You can't appropriate inside. Anybody that works, you can't appropriate inside of my space. You can't use the space for other than what it is. That's why this is the aspect of when you're creating, this is the aspect of when you're building out your spaces. You have to build out your space based on alignment with where you're at. If you're in a space of healing, 9 times out of 10, most of the time when you're in a space of healing, what do you usually get? You get motherfuckers that is broken, crazy, fucking, you get everything that you get everything that you can throw a definition at. I'm tired of having narcissistic niggas in my inbox. I'm tired of having these entitled women inside of my inbox. When are you going to ask yourself the question, why do you feel so entitled to your inbox not getting that in it? Are you really applying? Because you have to look at the elements inside of your space. You have to look at the elements inside of your space in which you're creating. I said this earlier. I'm going to repeat a little bit of it from the beginning. If you go back to about I've been doing it for 3 weeks now, and look at my page for about 3 weeks now. If you look at every post that I've posted, I started with the symbol, i.e. the sigil for each day of the week. I gave you the frequency to each day of the week. I also gave the next thing, I relaunched the 12 days, or the 12 days of self-reflection, 12 questions for you to sit with yourself. Right after that, I gave you 8 prompts. I gave you 8 whole prompts for self-reflection. I got one more to drop, and that'll be I'm gonna drop it later on today for Monday. Each one had the sigils from the first one in the aspects of the space. So because I understand in the basic occult science, symbols, repetition, and the feeling. Symbols, repetition, and that simple symbols and repetition. I understand that's what this shit is, symbols and repetition. So if I create anything inside of my space, I'm going to use anything that I illustrate. In the illustration that I use is my symbol. So now the fear for me, one of the things for me in the aspects, one of my fears was, what if somebody takes my shit and uses it as their own? That was one of my hardest ass feelings. What if somebody uses my shit and uses it as their own? So when I put out anything, I made it convoluted. I made it so you had to come to me. Going deeper into the root of me being a male, being an alpha male, without even acting as an alpha male. The alpha male and the alpha female, the male and the female, only seek things based on sustaining where they're at and not growth. The male and the female archetype only seeks things that are not based on growth. It's based on keeping themselves stable and keeping themselves stable inside of that space. Give you the example, and when you get triggered, every time somebody triggers you and talks about your womanhood or your manhood, you get mad, you want to fight, you want to say, well, I wouldn't have to do this, this, and that, and this, and the third. You go on a fucking rant because they showed you where you're stuck in your female sense. One of the hardest things to realize when you're sitting inside of that space that hurts a lot of our feelings is accepting that you accepted attention and you compromise your standard and your boundary. It's not so much that you compromise your standard and your boundary because you haven't got to that level yet. Why do I keep compromising these standards and these boundaries? What are these standards based on? Are these standards actually based on growth? Or are these standards based on me? Are these standards based on me being able to say, okay, cool, I've done this and I feel like I need less of that? Or is it going to be, use an example. Is your standard of being plant-based, vegan, eating healthier, what is it for? What is it for? What is your standard based on you wanting to be vegan, plant-based? What is it for? Is it based so you can be like, is it so you can say, I meditate, so I'm higher. I meditate, so I'm on a different frequency. I eat plant-based, so I on a different frequency. Until you define that frequency, this is the thing about consciousness, and you have to think about, now, I love triggering. Think about the entire spiritual community as a whole. And visualize the entire spiritual community. How did we come into spirit? How did most of us come into spirituality? How did the spiritual movement come together? Like every other fucking movement. It came based on trauma. The foundation of every movement that we've been stuck into to beat our chest out and have our egos pumping was based on fucking trauma. So it has to stay traumatic. It has to stay inside of that way. So it has to stay based on, yeah, we got to stop them from appropriating our shit and taking our shit. Having that shit I don't even want. Having that shit I don't even want. Having that shit don't even match up with me. Having that, because you stuck in this chart, you're trying to have things match up with you. See, the male and the female aspect, you're always looking for something to match you. That's why when you going through your healing process and you sitting there, I can't wait to have somebody. I remember I said that shit. I can't wait to have somebody to be on my journey with me so we can share things, because you're still inside of that loop. You're still trying to define and validate your male presence, your female presence. That's why every time you look at something that says masculine in it, you ignore it. Your mind automatically ignores it. I'm not masculine, I'm feminine. And then this biggest example of it, you gotta walk in your shit before you have to integrate with it before anything can actually cycle through. You're trying to do things from a state of the shit's not overflowing. So you keep trying to do it from the reserve of yourself. This is use the example, because this is one of the hardest things. This is a lot of shit we're gonna be getting into this. This is one of the things that we have to think about. I never understood the process of, just because I know how to cook, clean, I love to cook, I love to clean, I love to cook and clean, but I love to do yard work as well. Just because I clean and I cook, don't make me any less masculine. Don't make me any less masculine. Just because you work for the things that you desire, and you work for your basics, doesn't make you any less feminine. We have to call it exactly what the fuck it is. You're sitting in a wounded space. You're sitting in the wounded male, or you're sitting in that wounded male space or that wounded female space. Call it what it is. Anything that triggers anything that contests or challenges your womanhood or your manhood, you automatically go, well, if I had this and niggas did this and women did this, then I wouldn't do this. But think about that aspect inside of the space. It makes no sense outside of that realm. That makes no sense outside of the realm of fear. It only makes sense inside of the context of fear. So then you think about protecting and providing. You try to go get statistics. In reality, protection and provision, that whole dynamic, the first time that we saw that was in the 1950s and 60s. In the Leave It to Beaver era, when they were talking about the woman stayed at home taking care of the kids and all of the shit at the fucking house and shit, and the man went out and worked and worked and worked and worked. And then you have to be honest inside of that space of what happened. You remember at that point in time where women, that switch over for women, when the feminist movement came out, and it came out with like, and they gave y'all the signs and the glamour of women in New York and women in these big cities out here smoking. They gave you the Sex in the City mantra. They gave you the Sex in the City background program. All of that shit was, they gave you the program. So then you connected to it like, yay, I can go to school. Yes, you still can go to school. But here's the thing. You weren't doing that. You were doing that as your purpose, and you weren't doing that for your purpose. The hardest thing about the aspects of womanhood and manhood, that's the state of assessment. See, masculine, that male and female space, that's the space of comfort. That's the comfort space. Stepping out of that level of dysfunction, the dysfunctions of being a male, the dysfunctions of being a female. If you never thought about it, why do you think they're giving you all this shit about fucking transgenders and shit? The questioning of your male, what's a male and what's a female? To trick, it's a part of that aspect of that space. Because in the womanhood, in your manhood, that's a space of assessment. That's the space of assessment. I'm assessing my manhood. You can get stuck inside of your manhood and womanhood because you're going to be like, well, I did all of these things and now I want to do this and now I can't do this. Why did you come into that space in the first place? Why did you come into that space in the first place? See, your manhood and your womanhood, that's the state of assessment. See, when I came out of that trying to be an alpha male, trying to be this big dog, try to be something based on appropriating and not actually doing the work so it didn't match, I came into my manhood I was exalting, even though there was things that I learned as being in survival mode. Here goes the key. When you're doing things in the aspects of your survival mode, There's going to be things that are naturally kicked out. There's things that there's things that cannot transition. You know, there's things that can't transition. But there's also things inside of that space that you can use in transition. It's not so much what it is, because that's where the appropriation comes. You said you were strong, you said you were strong, and now you're trying to be more resilient. But you have not built out the space of your resiliency. There's a difference between being strong, survival, and resilient, application, practical application. There's a difference between you can go make the money, you can go get the bag. There's a difference between you can go make the bag and then knowing what to do with it. There's a difference. There's a difference. That's why every time you got the bag, it was attached to trauma. You fell into that loop, ladies. You fell into that loop of, I'm tired of taking care of niggas and da-da-da-da-da. You're trying to be what you felt your mother should have been to your dad. Fellas, you trying to protect and provide the women. You're trying to give the protection and the provisions that your dad should have gave to your mother. That's all you're trying to do. You're protecting and providing your purpose. So automatically, every time you're triggered in fear, what happens? You get locked. You're triggered inside of that space. You're triggered to try to keep everything together. That's disorder. Disorder is the state of trying to keep everything together. Your mother, my mother, and my mom and my pops operated in dysfunction, in disorder. I had to understand that they operated in dysfunction and disorder. They came from spaces of, my pops came from a space of, that was, from the beginning was disorder. How he was raised, everything. So he was raised in the aspects of disorder. So at the highest point of creating order, he could not create order. There was things that my pops wanted to do, desired to do, but when it came to the aspects of the information, he could, even if he had the information, he spent more time in being in right, in trying to appropriate us and change us into that image, into that symbol of what that was inside of that space. Because it was a testament to his manhood. Because in his space, he learned no emotional intelligence. He didn't have emotional intelligence. He didn't have emotional intelligence inside of his space. My mother didn't have that chance to actually develop, to go through the aspects of developing inside of that space. Everything was in the aspects of high conflict. Everything based on her identity and things of that nature. So they got stuck in that realm of the manhood. So naturally, inside of that space, for me, in honoring that aspect, and this is the key, and being able to apologize to my father, in order to apologize to my father, that was the ultimate release. That wasn't saying that I did not forget the things that he did, but it allowed us to open up a different space. I apologized to my pops a few times until I learned how to truly apologize. I had to go through the apology process a few times until I learned how to truly apologize. Because every time that I would make the apology, the decree to initiate and invest in change, I was still getting triggered. Something else came up that he said. Something else came up that he did. And in me trying to stay inside of that dynamic, I wasn't shifting out of that dynamic. That's the key. You're going to have to shift back out. You might have to come back too. You're going to have to keep going. You're going to keep going as the devil, going to and fro from heaven to earth and back again. You're going to have to keep going in. You're going to have to keep tapping into those feelings and bringing those feelings down. The shit is autonomous. That shit happened automatically. Your brain, your subconscious and your brain, your heart's going to continue repeating it and making you try to feel it until you deal with it. They're in sync. You can't say, I would like to be in balance and in sync and not deal with the first levels of what you're not in sync with. You have to look at what you appropriated. You got to look at the states of appropriation. That's why you get triggered whenever you see somebody appropriating your shit. They keep appropriating our culture. Funniest shit happened the other day when I was at the grocery store. I saw this old white lady in a dashiki. All I could do was laugh. All I could do was laugh. Because at no point in time have I remember going through the period of time where I wanted to own I felt like I needed to get a dashiki. Or get some kente cloth. If you know, if you watch I've never wore none of that shit. I didn't feel the need for it. I've already done it. The feeling that I'm feeling, especially, you're going to cry. It's all right to cry. I literally had a session Saturday with one of my clients, finding the aspects of their way. And we had a whole conversation on the aspects of being able to actually sit inside of that space. Because you have to redefine your manhood is not based in. So this is what happens. Another layer to what happens. You sitting inside of your space and the triggers of what you thought it was now challenge what it actually is. See, the challenge of what it actually was versus what it actually is, you haven't built out in the space of what it actually is. That's one of the major keys and aspects of going into that work. You ain't built it out yet. It's okay for you to sit, because if you sitting there and you like, oh my God, and this and this and shit, and go down the line. I remember for a damn near a year straight, every movie that I looked at, I was crying. I watched Aquaman and cried for no damn reason. I watched all of these movies that were meant to be sentimental and shit. I'm sitting there tearing up and shit. I'm tearing up at movies that I'm not supposed to tear up at, supposedly. But I had to understand that was the cleansing process. I had to allow myself that aspect. There's not a time when I meditate. I think it's between Wednesday and Thursday, I literally embrace that when I'm sitting there in my meditation, that whenever I feel that tear rolling down my eye, rolling down right here, rolling down into my beard, and finding its way to my lips, in this embraceful feeling of this tear rolling down my eye and touching me on my lips, and not feeling like I gotta go man up somewhere, and I can embrace that aspects of that feeling. I don't feel like I'm, oh my God, I shouldn't be doing that, and liking the taste of my tears and my feelings, because now I get to look at that. Because back in the day, when I was in that alpha male space, when I was in the alpha male space, trying to define my manhood before I stepped into my manhood, I used to love making bitches cry. One of my favorite things to do when laying with a woman was making that bitch cry. If she sat there and she teared up, I felt like I didn't know how to express the feeling, but she's sitting there crying, and I'm trying to intellectualize it. Like, that's what that good stroke do. Because up until that point, I didn't really understand my energy yet. I didn't really understand, even though I could say I'm a god and I'm powerful and shit, I didn't really know how powerful I was. I didn't allow myself, because I was not used to what chaos truly is, potential, I cannot allow myself to feel it. When you're not allowing yourself to feel that shit, you're not tapping into your chaos. Chaos must be felt. That's why every time you do something, every time you got in an argument with somebody, you tried to be cutthroat as shit. You tried to make them feel some shit. You tried to make them cry. You came into that space and they shared with you, and you shared with them, and you only base sharing to them based on what they share with you. Because you had an idea, you were in that space of expectation. Oh my God, this means that everything I'm doing, you used that guy coming into your space and sharing with you as validation for all of the shit you know you're not working on. Because you can't attach it to going higher. You attach it to everything that you ain't worked on yet. Everything in your fear space. You got excited when Shorty would share with you or needs you because it proved your manhood. So then you get stuck inside of that realm. And then you look around, you see that shit all the fucking time. There's a whole fucking podcast with a nigga that got bought, with the dude Myron aspect. In every fucking podcast episode, if you look at it, every woman that he bring on there is not at an emotional intelligence level. Every woman that he brings on there is at the emotional intelligence level that he's on, or lower, because he wants to beat on his chest and be an alpha. You look at the aspects when you see women in their you look at the women podcast and the aspects of what a man need to be doing, and this, like that sprinkle lady and shit. They're always going for motherfuckers that are at their same. You only can attack what is below you. Your dog, the broth, the demiurge. You only can attack what's below you, because you dare not fuck with the shit that's above you. You dare not fuck with that shit. That's when you got so many motherfuckers being like, I give my shit to Oshun and I give my shit to Baron Samni, and when are you going to start taking the steps of becoming that level of energy? When are you going to accept that lower aspects are you, so you can step into the higher aspects and evolve inside of that space? This is that process. We have to get out of this process of appropriation, because all you're doing is appropriating others and then trying to change them. Think about that shit. You get in a relationship. That dude made you smile. Shorty made you feel good for the first time ever. And then automatically now you're trying to appropriate. Now you're in a state of appropriation. Even when you try to take on their interests and take on what they like and do the things that they like to do, you're not even doing it from a space of application. You're doing it from a space of 9 times out of 10, you're doing it from a space so they can see me. So they'll see that I do all of these things because you evolved. Now that you came out of that space, yes, I'm in my womanhood. Yes, I'm in my manhood. You're still trying to provide and nurture the aspects in others that keep you in that definitive state. You're still trying to do the same things with others to keep you in that definitive comfort. So every time something dysfunctional happens, you believe that, okay, this bad shit has to happen in order for the good shit to come through. Here's the thing about the difference between, here's one major key that I've learned about the difference between chaos and dysfunction. Chaos forces you to become present. Chaos is only in the present. Chaos is only in the now. Chaos can only be accessed through the present, through the now. Dysfunction only can be accessed through the past and through the future. Sit with that. Dysfunction only can be accessed through the past and through the future. So dysfunction, whenever you feel resentment, whenever you feel like you got to get back at somebody, whenever you're feeling regret, Your dysfunction is leading you back into a state of regression, back into your past. Whenever you feel anxious, whenever you feel anxiety, your dysfunction is leading you into aspects of what you want your future to look like. Let's make it psychological and make it human. You ain't never had, you ain't never had an actual courtship. You ain't never had an actual courtship. If you look up the Google definition of courtship, a courtship lasts 8 to 10 months to up to a year. Yeah, 8 to 10 months minimum, up to a year. You ain't talked to nobody for more than a damn year. You ain't talked to nobody for more than a damn year. You'll get to 3 to 4 months in, 6 months in, and then your expectations start coming out. Well, you'll start talking, yeah, I'm doing this with family, I want this with this, and I want to do these things and these things and these things. Here's the courting phase. I've broken down the courting phase before. We're going to go deeper right now. The aspects of the courting phase. The courting phase is to synthesize it and bring it to something simple. The courting phase is where I assess my schedule, my availability, and my free time. In courtship, I assess my schedule, my availability, and my free time. I do not adjust my schedule for anyone. That is for me. I do not adjust my free time for anyone. That is for me. That is my time. That is my self-reflection, aspects of that work. But I can adjust my availability. See, here's the key. I can adjust my availability. Because in your availability, now here's the key. My schedule is order. My free time is my learning. The application. Order, application. In the center is chaos. Remember, the chaos is only in the present. My availability is always gonna be based on potential. I.e., that's why whenever you sit there and have that feeling and you sitting there trying to adjust your availability for somebody and it gets chaotic, usually when you stuck in a state of resentment, oh my God, I've never had a person do this to me before. I've never had someone do this for me before. When you stuck in that state of dysfunction, you'll automatically try to adjust your schedule or do things that go against your schedule or against, i.e., your purpose. You know, for 3.5 weeks, for 2 months, you've been waking up at 5 a.m. to meditate. You know you've been waking up at 5 a.m. to meditate. You just got to the point to where your nighttime ritual is in sync, not matches, but in sync with your daytime ritual. That means you're going to bed, instead of you going to bed at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the a.m., you going to bed around 10:30, 11 o'clock. You laying down. You got your music playing. You got an audiobook playing in the background. You got your water beside your bed, things of that nature. This person comes into your space and tells you that and now you want to talk to them. This is where your availability comes into play. From the aspects of dysfunction, it seems cute because we think about the high school narrative. And then we think about you have free time after 9. It was automatically laid in. Now you sitting inside of your space and you're like, I was up all night on the phone with this man. I was up all night on the phone with that chick. Okay. It's cute. It's cute, but what is it benefiting? This is when you have to be honest. What is it benefiting? I go to bed I'm in bed every night by 10:30, 11 o'clock. I got to the point a couple of earlier on in the year where my phone literally has the app in it. I went in to my developer mode, went into my phone, where my phone literally goes into do not disturb mode from 10 p.m. until 4 p.m., 4 a.m. My screen goes gray. I can access shit on my phone, but my screen goes gray, and I only can access my YouTube or my YouTube channel because I only can access down to my YouTube and my playlist on my phone. That's all I can access. I've taken away access to things that I know that can distract me. At 4 a.m., my phone comes back live. I open up another. Instead of like the first thing, because here's the thing, the last thing you go to bed to is the first thing you're going to try to wake up to. The last thing you go into bed to is the first thing you're going to be looking for in the AM. Because the way that you went out is the way that you're going to come in. So now I'm sitting in my space. Since I ended my night in meditation before I laid down, I started with the theta. I use a theta wave binaural, and I'm in that theta wave. When I wake up, I know I'm waking up in the theta wave. All of my, like for today, I have my Monday meditation mix put together. I got a theta beat. I have a theta wave in a rising theta set. That's like 15 minutes in, like it's like an hour, but I only use like 15 minutes of it. I have another alarm. That kicks in at 5:15. So I meditate. I'm laying in bed from 5:15, from 4:30 to 5:15, allowing my body to come back online. I'm allowing myself to feel into my body. For me, I get into lotus position. I'm laying back. I sit up, get in lotus position. I stretch all the way forward. I lay back. And then 5 minutes into my coming back into my body, I'll sit there and do my Kegels. Ladies know what Kegels are. Fellas, Kegels is when you lifting up on your pelvic floor. Like you lifting your nuts. You flexing your nuts. I do that and I count back from 99, from 100. So I start 99, 98, 97, 96, 94. I go all the way down to 1. And then I count. Then when I release, then I hold after I've done the flex, after I flex 99 times, pretty much, then I hold it and then I count all the way back up to 99. That's one thing that I do in the AM. Another thing that I've learned to do in the aspects of syncing with certain numbers, like my birth year is 84. So when I count down to 84, I hold 84 and I count to 10. Or I hold 84 for 10 seconds. I go down, another number for me is 27. I do that. I go through certain processes inside of the space. So I'm setting myself up into my space. I'm syncing with my space. 5:15 happens for me. My alarm goes off. I even have it written in it. I put serene, like the first one, my first alarm that goes off at 4, the 4 o'clock alarm goes off, and I'm just laying there. I'm laying there, allowing myself to come back into my body, scanning myself. 4:30 hit. The alarm says, it says meditation and self-reflection. So I start my meditation and self-reflection. The second phase for me, 5:15, I'm up. My phone says Supreme Rising, guys. Supreme Rising, Lucy, Supreme. I put Supreme Risings into that shit. So then I fall into my next phase. I get out, I roll out of bed. I do like 50 push-ups. I do 50 push-ups, a couple of crunches. I do some stretching while I'm sitting there in my meditative stance, and then I go into my next meditative space. I'll do that for till about 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, I'm up. 6 o'clock, I'm up. I'll go for a run. I'll go for my run, go for my workout. Everything I did inside of my space already has a symbol connected to it. My alarms are my symbol for me inside of that space. Practical application. Using what's inside of your space. One of the things that we get hit with a lot of the times is we're wondering, but I can't do this until this happens, or I can't do this until this happens. All you're telling yourself is, okay, cool. All you're giving yourself is that excuse. Once that once that excuse becomes depleted, in that sense, once that excuse becomes depleted, what happens next? That's when you decide, oh yeah, no. This time, yeah, I guess I need to start meditating. When something, you only do it based on dysfunction. So you're only going to do it until you don't need to do it anymore. Until you get the feeling of what is familiar. When you're going through the application process, you're going for what's unfamiliar. The opposite, the adversary. I play the role of your adversary. I sit and play the role of your adversary. That's why it's so easy for when my clients come sit down with me in a session, it's so easy for them to vent because I'm playing the role of their adversary. I'm faceless to them inside of that space. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're in a high emotional state, everything's cloudy, you can't see me. But since I have that state of resolve, I've resolved those aspects. When I'm looking at you, even when you say something that you want an agreement with, because you would do it constantly all the time, you want something to agree with, I pose you a question. I give you a riddle, i.e. I can be Thoth. I give you a riddle. If there's something that's it's time to die within you, I give you, what do you have to offer? I give you Anpu, or I give you Anubis, or I give you Samdi, or I give you Papa Legba, or I give you Isu. I know how to, instead of me trying to go through an entire process to channel that energy, I'm already that energy. That's my purpose inside of that space. I'm not doing it from an aspect and a position to further help you keep you in a state of appropriation of your discomfort, of your dysfunctions. I desire you to be in order. I desire you to have order. I desire you to come into potential. That's the aspect going into that space. That becomes the difference. That's why whenever you're looking inside of those spaces, and the first thing that I'll tell you is, everybody got to come at the time that they need to come. You can't force nobody to do something you don't want them to do. You can't. The moment that you find yourself trying to force somebody to do something that they're not ready for, is the moment that you are actually going to go against yourself. You're actually going to go against yourself. You're actually going to fuck yourself over because you're making an agreement with them. You're making an indirect agreement with that person. Every time that you want to go argue with somebody about the shit that they're doing in their life, thank you. Every time you want to have an argument with somebody of what they're doing in their life, and you're trying to make them see something a certain way, that's actually what you're actually doing. That's gonna fuck you up, not them. They're already going through their cycles of detriment and disorder and everything inside of that space. Just by you trying to make them do something that you can say that it can be for the best for them, you got to ask yourself the honest question: is it what's best for them or what's best for me? And be honest about it. If it's only best for anything that I do in the aspects of balance through my manhood and womanhood, it's usually going to be what's in benefit for me of my manhood. Remember, that alpha male mentality, that manhood mentality, that woman mentality is for you to be able to nurture only what helps you survive. It's not helping you grow. You're only going to sit there and try to maintain what gives you the sense of, yay, I'm the one that's on top and I'm the one doing these things, so you can keep validating the shit that you've been doing. But when you step into that space of that true selfishness, in the higher aspect, that order, that potential, you see everything as potential. You're actually, because now you're getting to learn what is in alignment with where I'm at with myself. What is in alignment with me learning the aspects of myself inside of that space. Yesterday, cooked Sunday dinner. My nieces and nephews came over. My nephews have never been more, ever since the one time I had a conversation with them, they've never been, at least around me, they've never been in more calm. They've never been in more order in a certain sense. feel what I'm saying? That confirms that what I'm doing is in order. When you're moving in order, everything becomes, you're not looking for validation because everything becomes a confirmation inside of that space. Use another example. If you've been rocking with me, you see you know I've been going hard in the aspects of building your legacy, building out your space, building out your legacy. Not yesterday, I think it was like Friday. After I was done with all of my sessions, sending out charts and emails and whatever, on Friday, I watched an episode of Drink Champs. You're not familiar with Drink Champs? It's a show with Noriega, DJ FN. On the show, this recent episode, they had Jadakiss on there. It was Jadakiss. Jadakiss, his father, and his son. So it was the grandfather, the son, the grandfather's father and son. Jadakiss' father and mother are still together. Like, it was a moment of celebration because now they're creating a legacy. They're actually created Kiss Cafe, or their actual brand of coffee, inside of that space. And sitting there watching that, for me, it was it made me cry. It made me tear up. Because I remember the last time that I had a conversation with my pops in the physical, in that space, and we were having it, we were at odds, we were at that adversary space, and the only thing what I told my pops was in aspects of truth, and I was like, Pops, everything that, remember, you may not remember it or may not think about it, but everything that you told me up to this point, everything that you've given me up to this point, that's what I'm about to go do. That's what I'm about to go do. It felt, that feeling for my sitting inside of that space to be able to say that to him, that was confirmation for me of when I needed to go forward. Instead of staying in a state of dysfunction, I outgrew the dysfunction. I integrated with my chaos. Everything becomes a state of confirmation. There's a difference between going through a state of dysfunction and then you're constantly looking for angel numbers and you're looking for posts to be a certain way because you're outside of that realm. You're not outside of that realm. There's shit that I do right. There's shit that I do. It can be 12-12, 11-11, whatever time it is. I did something right before 11-11. I see 11-11, I can just smile and keep going. I don't have to go through the whole process of like, yeah, I do that for, I did that already. If I wake up in gratitude, I wake up in honor, I wake up in honor, wake up in gratitude, wake up in my purpose, wake up protected, wake up in provision. If I go through my affirmations and they're in alignment with my present, everything that comes into my present, I can be in gratitude for. Because I've come to that level of being in potential. But you have to go through that healing process and deal with those dysfunctions. You created those spaces of dysfunction, whether directly and indirectly. You created those aspects. And now these are the results of your aspects of you staying in that space. Those are the results. You're looking for change to be you're still used, because a lot of times, because we're used to, in the humanity aspect, you're used to looking for change that matches. You're looking for change based on the answer and not change based on the truth. One of the biggest thing, the answer serves your behavior and your pattern. The truth serves itself. Your answers, when you're looking for an answer, it's to serve your behavior and your pattern. But when your aspects of stepping into the truth, it serves itself. It does exactly what is necessary inside of that space at that point in time, in the present. You must be open to it. You can't make the truth what you want it to be, because that makes it an answer. Dig inside of that space. But as we're going through the aspects of these processes, because one of the biggest things when we think about the state of compassion, in the space of being compassionate. It's simply being understanding and accepting of others. Being accepting of others as they are. And regardless of whatever is inside of that space, I still have my opportunity to navigate doesn't change. The only time you know when you go into some dysfunctional shit is that's when those thoughts come up. Man, I should have did this 3 years ago. I should have did this back then. Man, I'm too old to do that now. I'm too this to do this now. I'm too this to do this now. All of that shit come up. It's addressing your dysfunctions. But you have to come out of that state of the dysfunction to shed it. But like, yeah, well, the fact that I'm doing it now, the fact that I'm having the thought process about doing it now, remember, if you follow me, I don't agree with that. Think positive. I say think constructively. Because I always say think constructively. Because there might be some shit that you need to do that may be deemed negative, but it might be necessary at that point in time. It outroot, because if you try to do something positive and it doesn't serve a purpose, then you fall out of sync. That's why when you're trying to think positive and all of a sudden you're thinking positive, and then one negative thing happens and it sets you back, it's because you ignored doing what was in opposition to what you're thinking in aspects of positive or thinking constructively inside of that space. I want to pull out some cards. But yeah, you have to, we're coming into this space of understanding with ourselves. You coming into that space of understanding with yourself. I'm going to repeat it one more time. When you're moving in your purpose, you're automatically protected and provided for. When you're moving in your purpose, you're automatically nurtured and guided. When you're moving in your purpose, you're automatically provided and protected for it. It's autonomous to that space. But you have to accept where you are at inside of that space. If you know you need to be going through the healing process, you know you need to sit down you need to sit down. If you don't know how to sit down, link is up top, hit me in the inbox. You know you need to be going through your healing process. You will be provided, and everything that is provided or that provision will be going into the aspects of your healing process. It will be going into the process of application and not the process of appropriation. Feel what I'm saying? That's what I said. That's what I mean by when I say, I'm going to say it again. The divine masculine does not provide nor protect. The divine feminine does not nurture nor guide. The divine masculine invests in what nurtures and guides in alignment with his purpose. Because his purpose is going to be based on protection. His purpose is already protected, and his purpose is where he gets his provisions. You feel what I'm saying? So anything he invests in automatically gets the provision and the protection as long as it's in alignment with what he is. The divine feminine does not have to stress about nurturing and guiding because she only invests in what protects, what's the protections and the provisions that are in alignment with her purpose. That means as long as it's in alignment with her purpose, if her purpose is healing, then everything that is going to provide and everything that is going to protect and provide to her, and we're going to, I wanted to say this again because I want to get deeper into this aspect to get out of that old element. Anything going into that space, because it'll be provided and protected. Now here's the key. Here's another key. Inside of that space, you got to redefine what protection and provision is. And that's hard for some people. Because you were given protections and provision. You were given protect. Hello, cricket. Look at that cricket. Hello, cricket. Get away from me. Get away. What are you doing? Go somewhere else. Goddamn crickets. Always got signs always flopping all around me. But now you got to redefine what protection and provision is for you now inside of your current space. You have to redefine that. You got to redefine what nurturing and guiding is, the nurturing and guidance is inside of your space. Remember, from the traumatic aspect, in the physical form, you thought protection and provision was based on that was going from a space of a certain level of security that you needed based on your traumatic imprint. You weren't protected when you weren't protected as you weren't protected as a young child. So now you've developed and you've appropriated those tools and aspects to protect and serve you. To protect, it's less of provision and more of serving or servitude. It's less of protection and more of pandering. It's not protection. It's in the aspects of dysfunction, you're looking for pandering and servitude. In the state of, that's for when we look at the aspects in the masculine to the feminine presence. You're looking for what panders, and it's crazy that card's at the bottom. You're looking for what panders and is it of servitude to you. In the masculine sense, you're not looking for nurturing and guidance. You're looking for what needs neglect, what is neglected, and what needs grooming. You're looking for what you're looking for what is for things that are emotionally neglected and things that need to be groomed. That's why when you come into that space and you beating on your chest as an alpha, you want to be that alpha male, alpha female archetype. 9 times out of 10, every time that you go into that space and you beating on your chest as an alpha male, alpha female, you're looking for something that's being neglected. You're looking for that pandering because your worth is external. You've learned to, because you went through the processes of everything that you did was to validate your worth, and validate your value. So the only way that your worth and your value can be, validated is why you have conversations of, well, I make my own money and I got my own place and I got this, and this, and I got this, and this. Guess what you're gonna keep attracting? Things that are neglected, so you can give to it, so you can nurture it, and things that you can be in servitude to. From the masculine aspect, you're looking for things that you can pander to and be in servitude to. Being stuck inside of that space. Because you keep moving inside of it, that realm. You're only looking for things that can feed your neglect. You're looking for things that can feed that neglect, that wound, that abandonment, that absentness, that anxiousness, that anxiety. You're looking for things to feed that. Because you're stuck in a state of dysfunction. That's why every time that it happens, you get that impulse like, oh my God, this is the first time ever that a guy listened to me for longer than 20 minutes and didn't want anything. But since you've been seeking that for so long from a space of lack, you only have your skill set is only set to that. Your skill set is only at that level. Your emotional intelligence is only at that level. So the only thing that you can give to them, what was triggered by every Kevin Samuels post, is the aspect of your value is externalized. You depended on your value being validated, but you never confirmed it. Even when you got up and you looked in the mirror for less than 5 minutes, but you're looking into the mirror from a space of lack. So you looking at what you lack on your face, what you lack about yourself. So then you go through the stages of appropriation and try to appropriate. All right, cool. I'm gonna put my face on, do this, do this, do this. But then it's not in alignment. The only reason that you putting your face on is because you got to go outside and go to work. So a self-care routine is not really there. If you ain't got to go nowhere, or if anything inside of your space, you see how that comes into play? Anything inside of your space, after a certain amount of time of you going outside of yourself, once it's inside of your space, it's not natural of you to have a natural emotion. And we understand that there's points in time for men and women that there's times where I don't feel like I don't feel like combing my beard. I don't feel like taking my locks down. There's going to be those times. But those are not some things that you're seeking for somebody to accept. Because you've truly accepted it. You've truly accepted it. It's become a part of your natural order. You know that in between the time of today where I cut my hair, lined up my beards, conditioned my locks, and going into next week, I'll give myself a lineup, things of that nature, because I know that for me, in layering into my space, I know that I'm outside of a position to where I don't have a job to set my tone. I have my purpose. What's in alignment with my purpose naturally becomes I only invest in things that nurture and guide me in alignment with my purpose. Me waking up after I'm done meditating, go to the workout, come back to the crib, take my shower, my mirror work ritual, which is ongoing application, is me sitting in front of the mirror, working on my slits, conditioning my face, conditioning my beard. That's a part of me in my dynamic of the divine masculine being 60% masculine, 40% feminine. That means the 40% is the anchor to my 60%. That the masculine anchor is the 40% that is that feminine presence, that feminine essence of energy of nurturing, guiding, wisdom, the self-care routine, and things of that nature. Me learning inside of that space. Me taking information from the masculine space, that knowledge, and applying it inside of my realm. Similar to, then we switch over to the feminine base, the divine feminine, 60% feminine, 40% masculine. The divine feminine, 60% feminine, 40% masculine. That means the 40% of that masculine that serves as your anchor is your acknowledgement. The acknowledgement of you, the acknowledgement of your truth, the acknowledgement of your worth, the acknowledgement of your value. How often do you sit with yourself and you go through the stages of acknowledging your worth, acknowledging your value, acknowledging your strength, not only just acknowledging the positive aspects, but also acknowledging the negatives, acknowledging the things that you need to work on. Because if you only acknowledge one, the other one's going to be sitting there undisciplined, and that's where the dysfunction comes from. That's when you get those niggas. That's when you get the dude in your inbox, or the dude you post a picture. You post that pic, you make that post. Remember, everything you do is intentional. It's set to an intention, it's set to a purpose. So you make that post, but because you made that post off impulse and you haven't learned how to move in order, you'll make a post, you'll get the exact response to that post that you said you didn't want, and then you'll find yourself trying to defend your post. Look, I was just putting up a picture of myself because I felt good today. The question you need to ask yourself is, why do you feel the need to defend yourself? Where inside of your space do you not feel secure? Where inside of your space do you feel the state of apathy versus empathy. Do you know the difference between apathy and empathy? What are you feeling? What are you really feeling? What conversation are you not having? See, that's the aspects of that divine masculine. That's that 40% masculine you're anchoring. In that feminine aspect, that's the emotional aspect. But you got to sit with those feelings in both of those spaces. That changes the dynamic of how you're operating and you're moving inside of those spaces. That takes you outside of that realm of you're looking for somebody to give you something outside. This goes deeper in the aspect of there's nothing that I need from anybody else. There is something that you need from somebody else, but there's always going to be that need. See, it's all about, we're going into the aspects of advancing your needs, advancing your level of need. Your level of need will become more and more less reactionary and more in aspects of potential. So now you change the dynamic in the directions. You need somebody to go have a conversation with. Do you have a therapist? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a guide? This is whenever you look up and down. I know on my Facebook feed, right now they're going through a state of like, everybody, it's good to have a mentor in your life type shit. So that confirms for me that, okay, cool, led up to me doing a live today in that aspect of that space. You have to understand where you actually are at and fully accept it. If you're inside of your healing phase, every time you're triggered by a post that says, don't let your healing keep you from a relationship. If you know that you are accustomed to that every time something gets hard, you go seek companionship, you know that you need to be doing the exact opposite. That's confirming for you that, okay, I'm in the right space, because the last time that came up, I found myself in a 6-month, I found myself in a relationship that somebody got in my inbox, and I answered the message and I talked to them for 3 weeks. And then I spent the next 6 months trying to get out of that situation, because you don't understand courting. Feel what I'm saying? There's still that aspect with yourself that you have not yet integrated with. And it's okay that you haven't integrated with that aspect of that space. But it's up to you to actually acknowledge that. One of the major keys is the aspects of that acknowledgement. Y'all know I desire y'all to be the fucking best. What tism is it? Oh, it's 2:58. 2:58. Been on for 2 hours. Don't even realize it. As I'm sitting here shuffling this deck, if you're interested in a reading, one thing that I say, like, if you're interested, like, one thing that I actually do start doing that I don't really tell people, I always tell them when they get in my inbox. But if you come to me for a reading during a live, let's say you don't want a live reading. Whatever price that I put above that live, no problem. Whatever price I put above that live, that's the price that, based on looking at, if you see that live in that day, like today's Monday. Usually don't do readings on Mondays. But that price is a special price that you can tap into, and you can book a reading at that price. It will be a general energy or a clarity reading inside of that space. You can actually book, drop that. You can actually book that. I'll send you the link. You can actually book that for later on inside of the week, because what I'm always about, as I've been talking about during this whole lecture and live, is for me, it's being inside of a space. I'm always trying to give you access, but my access is based on me setting in aspects of my purpose. That goes into the aspects of the Ace of Wands. Ace of Wands, Ace of Wands. You're sitting on a decision. You're sitting on a decision. Right now, you're sitting in the space. You're sitting on a decision. There's a decision that you've made. There's a decision that you're going to make, or you're making, or you're thinking about making, or there's a decision that you made, depending on the next card. You know, I read the card after the card illustrates the energy. I don't illustrate the energy off the card. There's a decision that you've made that right now you're sitting with. In the Five of Wands, it represents the aspects of, in this case, division. There's a decision that you made that was in a state of division to divide some things or separate some things that you're now sitting with, and you're like, I don't want that. I don't know how to, I don't want to feel like I'm going back on a decision. Remember, one of my biggest things is there's things that you will have to go back to. There's something coming into that space that you made a decision, and now it's time for you to go back. You're not going back to dwell, you're going back to assess. You're in a state right now where you're assessing that decision. That leads into the aspects of that Lovers card. This is the aspect of that Lovers card, or that harmony. Coming into that harmony of that space. The decision that you made originally, that in that moment of that impulse of separation that you're now going back into, it's time to assess the purpose of it. Is it based on genuine harmony, genuine growth, or is it based on genuine growth and potential, or is it based on the appropriation or the replacement of something that you need in your life? A lot of times we like to move back and forth, and we stay too long in certain spaces because of something that was missing, something that we were lacking. And now you've come to, usually when that ever comes to that cycle, now instead of you taking that moment to assess it, you're trying to change what it is, or further, or change what you are that you necessarily don't agree with, in hopes that it can be seen. That's what comes into the aspects of that Empress. This is an emotional decision. This is something based on emotional. The Empress is internal. The Empress is internal. The High Priestess is external. I'm going to say that again. All them cards is red. All them cards is red too. This is a very emotional decision. This is on some shit dealing with some shit that's in the bloodline type shit as I'm reading it. The Empress is an internalized monologue. It's time for you to listen to that internalized monologue. You sat in this space long enough that your internalized monologue, this is the thing about the monologues, your internalized monologue, what's tripping you out and triggering you, that internalized monologue, guess what? It's now inside of it's in your space in some way, shape, or form. It's in your space. That's what's really triggering you. So that goes back to that decision that you made, that now you want to step back from it. But it's going to be that Six of Cups. This represents convictions of the heart. This represents convictions of the heart. The decision you made was based on the old convictions of your heart, based on what you kept telling yourself inside of that space. I did this, I've done this, I've done this in my life, I've done this in my life, I've done this. And now you sitting inside of that space, it's time, you gonna have to swallow the pride on them old convictions. It's time to swallow the pride on them old convictions. Them old convictions that you're so very, very used to sticking to. Them old convictions. Now you're sitting inside of a space. Now you're sitting inside of a space. Now you're sitting inside of that space where it's time for you're gonna have to swallow your pride on them old convictions. I don't talk to people. I don't do this. I don't share. I don't sit down. I don't let my feelings out. I don't let these things out. I don't want to seem weak. I don't want to be vulnerable. You are now inside of a space where you no longer can keep appropriating shit to avoid your shit. That I talked about that 3-4 years ago in the aspects of the shadow is now super fucking dense. That carbon 7 shit, that the shadow is super fucking dense, where all you got in front of you right now is the shit, either the obstacle, which is the aspects of you trying to avoid your shadow. If you no longer can keep taking the long way around, because you keep realizing that you keep coming back to the same shit. Them old convictions that you're trying to hold on to and avoid dealing with, that keep taking you around the long way, you keep taking the scenic route, when you got a direct path to it, that direct path is going to hurt your feelings. That direct path is going to hurt your feelings. That direct path is what you need that direct path to challenge you. You're used to being indirect. You're used to being indirect. You're used to being passive. You're used to being either super passive or overly aggressive. What side are you on? Those old convictions. That pulls into the aspects of the Nine of Coins. This is not something to be rushed. The biggest thing about processing is getting out of that space of that fear of, man, if I don't do it, then it's time for you to start addressing why you fear the fact, from the surface all the way down into the inside, till we get to the inside, of what you're afraid of. If you do this, if you take the 3 months off, give you the game. For every 6 months of dedicated work to yourself, acknowledges 1 year. For every 6 months, you can knock out a year. For every 6 months, you can knock out a year. The rule of 100 states that if you spend 15 minutes a day, 15 to 20 minutes a day doing one thing for a year, the same time next year, you'll be in a state of progress. You're not looking for progress. You're not looking for progress. You're looking at the aspects of the process. You'll be further along in the process than you could have been. And everything that needs to come up inside of that space is now coming into that space. That Knight of Coins represents the old grounding, what you used to stand on. Remember that Six of Coins represents that convictions. It's time for you to address and stop being so hasty in dismissing the things that are challenging your old convictions. Because those things that are challenging your old convictions are what are muting, muting or putting a bias to your internal monologue. Every time you had that conversation about you about to go do something, even when you say you're about to do it, you set up to do it. I'm about to go run 3 miles. I'm about to go run 3 miles. You woke up the night before you got out your running outfit. You got out what you were going to wear to your run. You got your water. You made everything. And at 3 o'clock, at 4:30, when you said you about to wake up, you looked over at your phone. Instead of you getting up and getting ready to go, what did you do? You went and picked up your phone. So you spent 15 minutes on your phone. Spent 15 minutes on your phone, looking at your phone, and then looking at some messages. And the message that you got sent, because you're going back to the past, that message was sent to you at 8:40. That message was sent to you right before your do not disturb went off. So the message is already 6 hours old, but you feel the need to say something about it. You went onto your Facebook and you saw a post, you made a post, and you said something, and somebody challenged it, so you felt the need to sit there before going on your run and getting ready, and you spent 30 minutes knocking on that. So now it's 7 o'clock, and now you got to go to work. Whose fault is it that you sat there inside of that space and standing on those old convictions, and you felt the need that ain't nobody going to try to play my face or disrespect me? That's how we keep moving in haste based on old shit. And I'll pull one more card. You coming into this phase. This is your second phase of this. The last time you sat in your hermit phase, it wasn't self-imposed. Your last state of going into your hermit phase was not self-imposed. That's what I just heard. It wasn't self-imposed. The last time that you went into a so-called hermit mode is because everything around you got so dysfunctional that instead of you sitting there with it and going through the process of what the fuck is this shit, you went into a state of disorder and you made work your number one priority. You made a trip your number one priority. You made that relationship a number one. You made something else your number one priority instead of you. That's what I meant by that hermit phase was not self-imposed. What really happened is you went through another event that was not something. You went through another event that was not conducive to where you actually needed to be. And then you spent the next 6 months trying to get over it. Every day, you have a choice. From that choice, you got some options. You got the option to, in this case, to wrap this up, to bring this all the way back to the point B. You have the choice to continue to appropriation, going through states of appropriation. That means doing the surface level shit. Ooh, I can buy that, so I'm going to get that and use that. Or you can go through the application process. Application is investment. That means there is a process that goes with it. That means there is intentions that are set with it. Intentions, affirmations, purpose, the work. Whether you're 25, 34, 46, whatever age it may be. The only one thing is for certain, that you can spend 4 years saying you're going to do it, and then on the 4th year, you still changed, you still aged, but you're still in that same space. Or you can sit down and get ready for that process. I desire you to be the fucking best. As always, appreciate y'all for stopping through, coming through, get this information. I dropped it out on a Monday, on this moon day. If you're interested in services with me, everything from readings to consultation, getting that shadow work consultation, learning about my shadow work therapy programs, human design charts, natal charts, and all of my other works, mentorship, things of that nature. Either go to my website, hit me in the email, send me an email or a message through my site, hit me in the inbox. I'm going to keep doing what I'm going to keep doing. Yeah, I'm going to keep doing what I'm going to keep doing. I'm about to go walk in the grass for a little bit. I love you. You love us. Ashe.